Hi guys, I'm Shmi, hello and welcome back to the channel. Well, you join me today here in Orange County, California at the Marconi Automotive Museum. We're in an extraordinary room filled with incredible cars that we're going to be taking a look through today, including, sitting right center stage, a Ferrari that you probably never even knew existed. In fact, one of 3 cars here that were formerly part of the royal family of Brunei's collection that we're going to be able to take in. But we've got everything from my favorite car in the world, the Ferrari F50, through plenty of Italian exotica. We've got American muscle cars, race cars of all sorts, including some Formula 1 cars, plus, as I mentioned, right there, a car that we're going to spend a bit of time checking out today on our visit here to the Marconi Automotive Museum. I haven't yet mentioned the other cars like the TWR XJ220S, the 300SL Gullwing, some of the movie cars like the Batmobile and KITT, but we shall get to those along with this trio center stage, which have me truly intrigued the more that I've been finding out about some of that story. But here we are, the Marconi Automotive Museum, founded by Dick Marconi and his son John. It is now run along with the foundation by John and both his son Vince and also daughter Monique. They host different events. It's an event space as well, also being open as a museum and supporting charity as well through all of this, preserving it for the future. And let's go for a whistle-stop tour, really. This is a lovely Ferrari F12 Berlinetta. The colour is Rosso Maranello Livrea. It looks magnificent. Of course, next to that is an icon and a half, the Ferrari F40, an absolute legend, distinct wedge shape. You can see the weave through the paintwork. It's a lovely, lovely thing. We then continue through this way, the Boxer, the 512 BBI. Next to that, quite an intriguing pair of Testarossas, which will tie us through to where we're headed shortly. Firstly, the 512 TR, which was effectively the facelift, the refresh of its predecessor, the Testarossa. There was also the 512M. Now this car was actually driven quite extensively and would at the time have had the single mirror style. It was actually changed to have the dual mirror because that was preferred. The reason for the cars and the choice behind the cars is down to what appealed at the time, what was interesting, loads of racing, and in fact we'll get to some cool racing cars as well. Up top we have an F355. There are a few of those about, I think that kind of era, really cool, screaming V8 in that thing. But then look at this, race cars mounted up high on the walls. Such an awesome display. In fact, cars that are all driven and have been run. I think this bright pink Chevron has even set some lap records around Willow Springs, Button Willow, some of the circuits in the California area. If we keep coming through though, this is a highlight for me. I love my 1960s Mustang. We've got a 65 Shelby GT350. One of those at some point in the future would be amazing. Next to that, the Morris Mini Minor as well. We're going to head through also to the race shop very shortly, where things are even in progress and happening over that away. To quickly draw attention to these two, Batmobile. This is crazy to see. This is one of the original cars that was actually used, and it's here as part of the display, along with Knight Rider, KITT, right alongside also. If we come this way, probably my favorite classic of all time, Mercedes-Benz 300SL Gullwing, sitting over the top of a De Tomaso Pantera, but that paint color is gorgeous. That is a really nice shade. We've then got another De Tomaso Pantera, that's the GTS, over the top of one of its wedge-shaped siblings, we could say, the quickly rising in popularity BMW M1. Love to see that. Keep coming up in conversation at the moment, which is really quite nice. We've then got a 1930s fire truck. As you do. I love that diversity of cars. We've gone from Batmobile to 300SL to De Tomaso's M1 and a fire truck. The display continues here, as you can see, with plenty of other cars. I don't think we have time today to go through absolutely everything, but the beauty is that the Marconi Automotive Museum are sharing things as well about all of these cars if you'd like to find out more. Let's skip through over this way though to come to this. The Jaguar XJ220S by TWR. They only made 6 of these. There were 3 done retrospectively a few years after delivery, one of which belongs to my friend Max Cooper, which is actually sitting in my garage right at this time. But this is one of the original 6 in the bright red paintwork. It's crazy to think. Super lightweight, 1,100 kilos or so. That's in pounds, 2,500 pounds, but still with nearly 700 horsepower. Incredible to think about. Through the middle here, a Bondurant driving school Corvette, Hemi Cudas, Plymouth Prowler. This 348 is actually quite fun. This is the very car, and part of the inspiration really behind the collection, that won the first year of the Ferrari Challenge Series here in the US. Of course, with the Marconis, it's here as part of the collection and opened up the opportunity to purchase some of the other cars that are around as well. If we squeeze on over this way, Mustang Mach-1 from 1970, more Mustangs, but I want to come down here because there's so much cool memorabilia as well. Above the DMC DeLorean, have a look up on the wall, some of the artwork there, art by Dano, alongside the race suits as well, and different bits of clothing and memorabilia. And that's a big part of the museum and an opportunity to take all of this in. This, however, is a special area. F1 cars, 1996 Ferrari car, driven by Schumacher and Irvine from that year, one of the 7 cars. This car is a Mansell car from 1985, Williams FW10, that sat right here. And then up on the wall is a Senna 1988 car, which is amazing in the Marlboro livery. Some Indy cars as well. There's an Isetta tucked in at the end beyond the Ferrari. I believe that's a 195S. Yes, that's the one. All the checkered flags up on the wall here at the top. Those are all from the race wins back at the time. That horse is actually made out of the bumper parts of cars, which is also really quite awesome. But this is, as you can imagine, a space that can turn into an event venue. That's what it's used for often here in Orange County, here just beneath south of Los Angeles. A few more cars to point out. General Lee, I think many know that. Back on the movie car theme, Dukes of Hazzard, the Lamborghini Espada. Purple is definitely a theme here with the colours, the Ferrari 348 just here, and also that car mounted up on the wall, a Lotus single seat car. We've then got the Maserati Bora, we've got a 964, we've got the Mondial, yes, Ferrari Mondial, a few other cars around. But you know what? I think we need to explain the 3 right here. The Cizeta, the Ferrari FX, and the Ferrari 456 Spider. This is a trio. The Cizeta-Moroder V16T, the Ferrari FX, and the 456 Spider. Now, I have previously seen in London one of the 456 Venices, the estate, the wagon, the shooting brake that were made. And I don't know the full story, but I'm sure many of you are aware of the Brunei collection of cars, and in fact how much time and money was spent with bespoke builds on Ferrari platforms, particularly back in the 80s, the 90s, creating one-off cars in partnership with Pininfarina, in fact spending tens of millions to create things that were really advanced in terms of technology, but also bespoke machines. And sat right here is one of those, the Ferrari FX, based on the Testarossa platform, one of only 6, and the only one, to quote the phrase, that escaped from the jungle, that is out there. A car that in so many ways was ahead of its time, and we're going to explore that in just a moment. Next to it is one of the 456 Spiders. The 456 was Ferrari's 4-seat car, the predecessor to the FF, the GTC Forlisso, and now the Purosangue. But this is with a difference. This went to Pininfarina to be completely converted, and to run you through what I mean by that, it normally had a roof, and in fact it still has a roof. It's been re-engineered for the folding roof mechanism of the Mercedes SL. That's in there, but also that required a gearbox change, so it's been re-engineered mechanically to have the SL's gearbox, as the standard Ferrari gearbox at the back wouldn't allow space for the roof mechanism to actually fit. If you come and have a look inside as well, to show you a little bit more of this, the seats are effectively from the 7 series. Even the seat controls that you have here are from the 7er at the time that you have on the doorway, with Pininfarina pulling this all together, making this completely bespoke vehicle. And come and have a look at the back. And before you do, no jokes about the Fiat Barchetta. The design is definitely slightly resembling that, but totally new look, totally new design, totally new style, created for the Brunei royal family. This is one of these 3 cars which escaped the jungle at one point in time and have been part of the Marconi collection for an extended period. Next to it, though, is this, the FX. This is based on a Testarossa. It's actually a really cool looking thing. We're talking a long time ago, but with a particular bit of engineering which wouldn't even find its way into later Ferrari models for a couple more years. And if you come through and take a look at that, it's the gearbox. This went to Williams Grand Prix, who engineered a paddle shift gearbox with a shifter reminiscent of that found in the 992 Porsche 911s, but with paddles on the back of the steering wheel a couple of years before Ferrari made their own F1 box. Now this car is powered by the Testaross's 4.9 litre flat 12. And in fact, I can very delicately open this up because this car is extremely valuable, as you can imagine. But inside here, you can see that engine. It's going to put this into place to hold it securely opened. But this has all had to be completely reworked. You can see various elements of the hydraulics inside here, but all done afresh. Everything from the mechanical side of it, all of the engineering to do with that gearbox, to the carbon fibre that you have here around the intakes, of course critical for getting the airflow through, considering the movement of different coolers and the change of the bodywork on the outside, but obviously based around the Ferrari engine and badged at the time as a Ferrari, because I think we all know the company back then created these projects. There were always stories about the left-hand drive to right-hand drive conversions of F40s and 288 GTOs and the different one-off colours, the cars that were outside of the official build numbers, but so much of it is shrouded in mystery out there in the warehouses in Brunei with these cars. It's amazing to be able to see this and to see the full exposed carbon fibre of the bodywork. And you know, we're talking decades ago with the creation of this, but presented so beautifully as well. I'm going to close this back down as carefully as I possibly can, conscious of what it is, what it represents, and how careful I need to be with it, making sure that's in place. But normally on the Testarossa, you have all of those sliding horizontal lines, obviously for the cooling, so that's had to be redirected and remanaged as it goes through the car. But it's such an unusual thing to look at and to see. And again, bespoke paint colours back at the time, the Naka duct here, obviously again managing the cooling through, full bodywork in carbon fibre, everything underneath in carbon fibre as well. And prior to learning about this, specifically here at the Marconi Automotive Museum, I didn't know that that car existed. I didn't know about the Ferrari FX. We know the FXX, we know the FXXK, but that's the FX, which was part of this huge project that the Brunei family had with Pininfarina to go ahead and make these. And I've seen a 456 Venice in London. In fact, many of the car spotters in central London have seen it over the years driving around. But the majority of these cars remain unknown. The stories aren't out there. We don't know the details. It would be the ultimate dream to head and have a look through some of those warehouses. A few cars have circulated, like the 288 GTO, that is painted in black with red pinstriping around the outside, completely different to any of the other cars, recently with DK Engineering in the UK. But let's move to this, the Cizeta. There are only 11 in total in the world, I think 8 original cars, 3 that followed. Originally with V16s, this car was supposed to be number 5 of the 8. It was actually changed away from the V16 to a Ferrari V12, unfortunately owing to some travel damage that it sustained. But again, a very unusual car, very Diablo-esque in its design and its styling and its shape, but one that you don't find out very much about from an era of motoring that was just so wild. These cars are just so, I don't know, unbelievable to be standing here, to be around this thing. It's really quite cool, isn't it? I should say it's based on the 512M. The 512M was the latest derivative of the Testarossa platform, the original Testarossa, the 512TR and then the 512M. Just amazing, honestly, just amazing. But there's even more to go and see. A fun thing right here, given I just mentioned that Max, the founder of Gumball, has an XJ220S, a very regular face on the Gumball 3000 is David Hasselhoff. And of course, KITT, Knight Rider, was driven by David throughout the 90 episodes in the early 80s in all of the series, and this is the #1 car, the car that featured throughout. There have been so many replicas and different cars used, but that's the original. And talking #1 cars, so is this, from Batman, driven by Michael Keaton, directed by Tim Burton, my namesake as it happens. But imagine driving in this. Imagine if you go somewhere in that car. It's going to be an absolute showstopper. Again, the #1 car used from the movies. And if you come and have a look inside here, the whole canopy slides forwards to reveal the interior. Imagine driving in that. It makes the bonnet of an SLS, the hood of an SLS, look tiny, given how long this thing is, all the way back to the fins that it has up the side, the kind of turbine setup. What a crazy thing. Absolute showstopper anywhere that could possibly go. But let's continue through. Moving onwards then to the race shop, we're joined by Vince.
Hi Shmi, how's it going?
It's good, thanks for having me today.
We're here in the race shop. This is where I do all of the service pretty much on the vehicles, other than a handful of cars that need special equipment. But we do the clutches, engine out services, everything you can think of in here. So right now I'm doing the 355, needed a clutch and a throw-out bearing, so I'm doing that right now. Over on the other bench, we have our Dino semi-apart. I'm still going through and cleaning parts. The 246, the first Ferrari in our collection, is going through a rebuild. It lost a head gasket and did a little damage to the engine, so it's being rebuilt by Rod at FAI down in Costa Mesa right now, and it should be done here hopefully in somewhat, probably February, April.
Well, this is really cool, because this is a bit behind the scenes. Cars being worked on, some more cars in storage. I know that Testarossa.
This Testarossa is absolutely incredible. It is a all original, documented 171 mile 1990 car. It's beyond anything you could ever expect. Every service has been taken care of and well maintained, even though it has ultra low miles. But seeing it as it was, basically, from when it left the factory is insane. It's spectacular. All the undercoating and how Ferrari did it back then, where it was very, very simple and everything wasn't perfect. So it's really neat to see the differences.
How Ferrari was back then, but you also you have a dragster.
Yeah, we have one of Bernstein's top fuel dragsters, 300 plus miles an hour. It's quite ridiculous when you see it up close on the side like that. And, hard to fathom that they can go that fast. But, with 10,000, I think they're upwards of 18,000 horsepower now. It's pretty insane, but they only last, 3 to 4 seconds. So then the engine needs a full rebuild. You only keep a handful of parts in the engine. So
that's quite ridiculous to think about. It's built for a few seconds. Maximum attack.
That's it. Yeah, each cylinder is well over 2,000 horsepower, and the pistons are massive, absolutely massive.
Amazing. But then even a Lamborghini tractor.
Yeah, this was my grandfather's. Originally bought it at auction years ago, and it's been out in his garden. So we've gone and taken it back out of there and going through and doing a pretty extensive restoration at some point on it. Right now, I'm just taking it a piece at a time. Wheels are powder coated, obviously not the right color, but I needed to put some kind of coating on there and put tubes in the wheels because they were so damaged. So new tires, rears are coming, wheels will be all repowder coated to the correct color, and just slowly go through and get pieces. They're relatively difficult to get pieces here because of how rare they are. So it'll be a project, but I'm looking forward to it. For
sure. I mean, completely different.
Yeah.
It's fun just being here and seeing the 355 opened up at the back.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole point of it is to show people what we do and what service goes on behind the scenes, because at Ferrari you can't see that stuff normally. So when I had the F40 was completely apart, all the way down, the intake manifold, everything was out of it. People get to see it, and I do the service right here. They're able to see it. The turbo seals went out, so I was showing them that and upgrading the turbos to 488 turbos with adapted housings from pure turbo, and them understanding it and showing them or rerouting water lines and stuff. So we get to do all this stuff and show people what goes on, and try and be as educational as possible, because that's what we do. I want to be able to show people what goes on behind the scenes that you don't normally get to see. So.
For sure, I absolutely love that you're working on this yourself, that you're doing this stuff.
I've had a real privilege working with some of the most incredible Ferrari mechanics over time. Larry Engelhardt. He did not all of them, but most of the gray market, like 288 GTOs. He did 20 of them, 15, 20 of them. Boxer BB512s, everything you can think of that they did back in the gray market to get the cars in here, he was a part of. So understanding it, learning it, and doing service was a big factor. And then I went on to work with Bill Joykoff, Enzo Motors. He does nothing but restorations and Pebble Beach, Concours winning cars. So working on 10, you know, 20, $30 million cars, it's been a real privilege,
Trained with the best, and now, and now keeping the collection alive and
yeah.
doing all the routine servicing.
Yeah, for the most part, we all have, you know, older cars here. There are a handful of newer stuff, but I stick to the old stuff that I know how to work on.
Yeah, I guess when it's something like an F12 or something like that.
Yeah, the F12, take that over to Ferrari and have them deal with it, because it's just too much, too many computers, too many things to go wrong. I can't go through and do basic diagnostics like you could, where, you know, the 355, it's basically 2 4-cylinders. It's got one ECU for here, one ECU for there. So it's really simple. You go through and you can do a quick diagnostic on it. You know, air, fuel, and spark. That's it. That's all it takes. So
work out what's up with it and get it back up and running. Well, I absolutely love the mix of cars. Love that you're working on them here. Full hands-on. It's amazing to see.
It's great. It's great. And the biggest thing is everybody's faces when they get to see it under the skin on what's going on. So it's really cool.
Back to the other side, we haven't spoken yet about some of the Italian cars here. I was about to say Ferraris, but there is one non-Ferrari. We start with the 355, which I believe is a visiting car at the moment. That's quite modified. Next to it is a Countach, and I always find it so interesting, the different bumpers that were available on the different years, particularly in the US, the different styles that they had. That's a very strange look, but obviously the car was just too low and too pointed at the front, too much of a wedge for the US regulations back then, one of the few US cars. We've then got a 550 Maranello, we've got another Dino here, another Dino 246 GTS, Daytona Spider, but check the color scheme. The red leather interior against the yellow exterior paintwork on the 365 Daytona. More time goes by, the more I'm a fan of those, but I am a very, very big fan of this, the Ferrari F50, 4.7 litre naturally aspirated V12. This is quite an early car, so there are some interesting elements of it. It's got the buckets inside, the clear view through here on the deck lid, through towards the engine, different style with some of the elements of this. You can see if you come close to the bodywork as well, the carbon weave that you have through that Rosso Corsa paintwork. But for me, the F50 has always stood out massively because of a couple of things. The ultimate recipe for me, naturally aspirated engine, a 12-cylinder engine mounted in the middle, a gated manual shifter, and the removable roof panel. You have a hardtop roof as well as a fabric foldable contraption that can tuck away into the small storage space that you have behind the seats, or you just drive it with the roof open, which is a pure symphony. Absolute perfection. Now, it's not just cars. We're going to come and squeeze through here as well. This is not so much my forte and area of expertise, but there are some two-wheeled elements of the collection. The display of Ducatis here, that's certainly a very special bike, one of only a couple. If we come up, something that certainly drew my attention is the late 90s Senna Ducati. The first generation of these came out I think in the year probably of Senna's passing, 1994. This was the second generation that came a few years later, but limited edition special bike, and with the exact same logo and double S graphic that is even found on my McLaren Senna, which is quite fun. And this is just half of the collection. There are plenty more here, some of the Harleys as well, and it extends up in this direction. But like I say, I know more about the four-wheeled stuff than the two-wheeled stuff. What I can say about this, though, visiting the Marconi Automotive Museum, is that this is an awesome place to be for the different cars that are here, for the setup. I mean, imagine hosting an event in this area when everything's tucked off towards the side from the middle, surrounded by this, but also the things they do to raise money for charity, to support different kids' charities in the Orange County area, through the cars, through a passion for cars, through toy runs, through cars and coffee style gatherings, through hosting events, and to have the opportunity as well to visit the museum. So super cool to speak with Vince, to find out more of what's going on there as well, and also his sister Monique, to just see what they're doing with the collection, and of course also to discover this, to discover the FX, the Pininfarina creation based on the 512M from the 90s, which I could probably spend a lot more time looking over, especially in terms of the technology side of this. To develop a system to automatically control the clutch back then. And yes, we're familiar now with DCT transmissions, dual clutches, etc. It's all much easier, if we can say now, but this was really, let's make it happen. And there's probably only one car collector in the world at that time who could make things like that happen. And therefore it's amazing to be able to see this now. So today has been epic. A huge thanks to the team at the Marconi Automotive Museum for the opportunity to visit and to be able to share this with you as well. Take a look around at everything that's going on. So if you're in the area, do stop by, well worth a visit. Check out the opening times, but also do follow the Marconi Automotive Museum on their social pages as well, if you'd like to find out even more about the cars and what's happening in the future. That's it for now though. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers.